8:30 p.m. as we hear the explosions happen there. Well, right now, as our correspondent who's following the story said, we are getting information, but some of this information still has to be confirmed. According to some unconfirmed reports, there are 10 people among the dead in the explosions, in the two explosions that happened on the St. Petersburg metro network. We're also hearing that there are 50 people who were injured, and there are children among those injured in the blast. Of course, some of this information has yet to be confirmed, but this is what we are getting through at the moment. Earlier, we saw some pictures of what's happening outside the metro stations. We saw some heavy police presence there and emergency services. And right now, let's take a look at what's happening outside. We see people outside of the metro stations. We see ambulances there, people trying to get out of the metro stations. At the moment, the metro stations in central St. Petersburg are closed, about 7 of them. So this is information that we have at this point. I'm hearing that we can talk to Afshin Ratansi from London. Afshin, are you with us on the line? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Afshin, so what do you make of what happened? What thoughts do you have for us?
Of course, a lot of speculation at the moment in these early minutes since the explosions in St. Petersburg. But how it'll be viewed in London, hopefully, will be some kind of recognition as to why Moscow, and Beijing for that matter, have been so concerned about US-UK-backed militancy for Islamic militancy across the Middle East. If any politicians from the old Obama administration are still skulking around the corridors of Washington in the Trump administration, they'll be looking at this, as will the current Theresa May government here, and be thinking, did we have anything to do? Did our policies help to foster Islamism and resurgent Islamism that is affecting countries such as Russia and China? Irony of ironies, within the next 24 to 48 hours, Theresa May will be in Saudi Arabia, the country long linked, at least in the United States, by intelligence reports, to Islamist terrorism. Certainly, all the speculation will be that this is indeed an Islamist atrocity. And of course, it's only been in the past weeks or so that British Defence Secretary Michael Fallon has even thought that British support for Islamists in Syria is the wrong policy. So if this indeed turns out to be an Islamist atrocity, it'll be certainly vindication for the kinds of policies pursued by Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, let alone Donald Trump, as opposed to the failed policies of President Obama and Hillary Clinton, who repeatedly backed wars and conflicts from the Atlantic Ocean, when they bombed Libya, right through to the heart of the Middle East, as they seem to be committing the same mistakes as Ronald Reagan in the 1980s of backing Islamist groups that then cause horrendous blowback.
Well, Afshin, at the moment, we are getting different information as to what happened, and we don't know the causes of the explosion and what's and who's behind these explosions. So that still needs to be confirmed. We know that the investigation, the prosecutor's office in St. Petersburg has launched an investigation and is trying to figure out some more information, more details. But just looking at what's happened there and some of the pictures there, why do you think St. Petersburg was targeted? Any specific reasons there? What are your thoughts?
Well, of course, it's a major Russian city. It's capital cities that are the targets of terrorists because they create publicity. The Chinese authorities try and not get that information out about low-level violence in Western China. In the West and in Europe, it is, of course, capital cities that have seen this growth in Islamist terror. And certainly in this country, we've been coping with, of course, the Westminster terror attacks in the past few weeks, but over the past couple of years, while Britain and the United States has been supporting Islamist groups in Syria, we've seen the growth of more isolated attacks in city centers. So Again, we're at a very early stage. We haven't even heard anything from Russian authorities confirming this is a terrorist attack. But if this was happening in Europe, most people on the streets of European cities would recognize this as Islamist terrorism.
Well, something like this happens certainly shatters all of us, and it is shocking indeed, and it takes time before people can come to grips with what happened. Right now, that we're hearing that Vladimir Putin has expressed his condolences and sympathies to the relatives of those affected in the blast. We're hearing, it's again unconfirmed as the situation is developing very, very rapidly, that 10 people were killed in the 2 explosions that happened in St. Petersburg today, and there are 50 injured. Children among those injured are as well. And about 8 stations are closed now in the city center. Well, Afshin, as we look at what happened, and you brought up what happened in London earlier, the question here is for all of us, of course. I mean, is there any way we can prevent this from happening, any way we can protect people from these terrorist acts? Because, you know, when there is a terrorist act in a city, we usually hear about police presence being stepped up, security being stepped up, but we already have so much security, it seems, on our streets. But how can we really protect ourselves? Is it really possible?
Yeah, the famous maxim that the terrorist only has to be right once and authorities have to be right all the time will no doubt be mentioned by Russian authorities in the outcome of this, in the aftermath of this bomb attack. Obviously, the core reasons of why people take up militancy have to be addressed. And I would add, again, I have to say, if this was indeed a bomb attack on the London Underground, already people would be saying, why is Britain supporting groups that catalyze Islamist atrocities across the Middle East, let alone inspire atrocities in Europe? These would be the questions that one tries to ask here in Britain and in France and in Germany. Usually in Britain we get a heightened law enforcement approach, but of course the nature of the way people live in urban environments mean that a law enforcement approach can never be the way to eradicate militancy of this kind, guerrilla